Welcome to Salve, a therapeutic podcast for digital ailments. We're here to ease your online aches and entrepreneurial anxieties, one session at a time, with our host Jordan Brannon and today's guest Vito Petruzzelli from Signifyd. Today's case, the nausea and vertigo brought on by digital fraud.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cyber Salve, where we help you understand and resolve the digital aches and pains that come with growing your business online. Today, we're going to be talking about the nausea and vertigo you might experience when you start to realize that some of your orders are being purchased and fulfilled to fraudsters, to people who are just simply interested in stealing from you. I've got a really good friend of Coalitions here with us today. Vito is joining us to help us, one, diagnose the symptoms, two, get a handle on how we can treat them, and three, also talk to us a little bit about what Signifyd does specifically as that medical professional to make sure that that fraud, pain, and nausea goes away. Vito, I'd love to hear a quick background. You actually had kind of an interesting bio for what you do today. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your story before we jump into today's conversation.
Thank you, Jordan. And if you've got water on the knee, you're going to want to stick around for this one because we'll help you out. I've been in the risk space for the last 10 years. If I don't know how much time we've got, but if we go back, I used to work in Denver Police Department. I was a crime scene investigator. And more recently, I represent risk intelligence at Signifyd. I'm the host of the weekly Fraudcast at Signifyd, where we talk about all of the ailments going on in the space as well, right? So it's an ongoing quest for health, I think. But yeah, if we go all the way back, I used to record and play in punk rock bands, and I actually used to engineer a show on 91.1 FM WFMU, the Fun FM in Jersey City, where we only did antique music. So music recorded before the advent of electricity. If you ever get to check out Paul Whiteman's orchestra, it's a personal favorite of mine.
Okay. Is that digitized someplace? I mean, is there someplace where I can go out and dig out the archives and that's online now for me?
FMU's archives are incredible, extensive. The Antique Phonograph Music Program with Michael Camella, if you're out there, you're the man. Thank you for all the fun times.
Good. All right. So it's short notice. If you need to download somebody, get Vito's voice recording, turn it into an AI thing, call his grandma, ask for some gift cards. That's where you go. Is that the fraud we're talking about today, or is that a little bit different?
Gosh, it's funny you bring that up because I was just talking about that today. I think we can start at the headaches and then go to the phantom limb pain that might be
someone who's trying to use your DNA against you, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Something a little more significant. So as you know, we talked a little bit before we jumped into this recording. Cyber Salve is just all about taking those symptoms, those sort of aches, pains, in this case, nausea and vertigo, that brands are experiencing or people responsible for certain roles at brands are experiencing as they're trying to grow digitally. And one of the big ones is sort of that sieve of lost revenue and lost product that comes with fraud online. My first job, sort of legit job in my book, was at Sears. We did appliance sales, and theft was the big thing. Like Sears would lose a lot of margin just to people grabbing stuff and heading out the door. And as I've moved into digital, that's really proven to be the case still. I've jumped into so many accounts where stuff running out the door is actually one of the big reasons you're not hitting some of your targets. So maybe you could quantify that for us. Talk about where you start to see some of the symptoms as a brand, like, hey, I'm having these conversations, I'm getting these emails, I'm getting this sort of month-end review, and something seems off. Like, what are the symptoms where you start to say, I think fraud is probably on the diagnosis list?
Absolutely. It's funny you bring up Sears because if they're running out the door at Sears, there's maybe 2, 3 doors to run out of. One of the problems in this space we're in, especially for all you folks who are, even if you're in a nascent e-commerce setup where you've got maybe 2 or 3 order channels, but as you scale up, you get dozens of different order channels, social media, agentic commerce, which is, popping off now. It's hard to guard every door. It's harder even to have scanners at every door if we want to continue that analogy. So you might not know where the pain is or the bleed is. I think that's ground zero for everything. If we want to diagnose ourselves and kind of figure out why this thing hurts, we have to kind of roll it all the way back to where it came from. I love, and I think everyone in e-commerce should kind of position them this way. I love to think about it as a journalistic enterprise. You are there to figure out the who, what, when, where, why, and how. And a
Okay.
couple of those of the 5 W and the H relate to your order channels,
Mhm.
right? If we're thinking I'm incredibly lossy at the mobile app level, but not
Mhm.
so much at the web or
Mhm.
any sort of permutation of those, that's a good start. And then
Mhm.
we start to, sprinkle on a little bit more. My killer, I'm trying to. I did not do well in biology, so my 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 medical metaphors are lacking.
All
I'm trying
right.
to.
Gotta watch some episodes of House or something and get ready for it, or Grey's Anatomy or
We're a
something.
Grey's Anatomy household here, so if
Okay.
I can
You've
put my
got the
Yang
hair.
hat
You got the
on.
hair there, actually. It's kind of lovely.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so Shepard here talking to you.
Yep.
If we just start at those order channels, that's
Mhm.
amazing. But my go-to metric, my be all end all at the end of the day is gross loss rate, where I'm essentially just going to take all of the GMV, the value, the merchandise value that I've decisioned, that I've seen come through and either thumbs up or thumbs down it. And I'm simply just going to divide that by all of the fraud that came in. It's a simple number. But if we take that number and then we apply it granularly against those channels and we
Mhm.
start adding different indicators to
Yeah.
that, you're going to see exactly where your pain point is. For
Yeah.
example, all of my order channels, and then I do buyer account age bucketed. Okay, so
Mm.
I have guest checkout. I have people who've just signed up that day, like a 0-day account, 30 days, year, so on and so on. Then the sky, I know everyone, if you're listening to this and you're in this game, you are a curious individual. My grandma used to
Mhm.
call me curious, but not that way. You're a curious
It
individual.
can be both. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right.
maybe that's how we got into this in
Yeah.
the first place, right? But if I add another thing to that, like, was JavaScript enabled?
Mm. Mm.
Um, is this account dormant? That's a huge one. Now we're uncovering something where if I'm
Yeah.
operating at, 15 to 30 bips of gross loss rate year to date, I'll see a segment that I just pulled up that has 300,
Mm.
400, 500 bips gross loss rate. That's where the bleed's at.
Yeah.
Honestly, while you're like getting rid of that problem, that, that hanging arm, I don't know what that is in the
Mhm.
medical field, you want to be strengthening up the other one. This is also a great exercise to see where you might be too conservative, too constrictive. You might have plenty of false positive or something like that. If I only have a 92% approval rate in a segment with, let's just call it 3 or 4 bips of loss, and my year to date is 15, 30 bips, I want to take more risk there. I want to bring that approval rate
Mhm.
because I haven't seen the losses
Yeah.
there that I've seen elsewhere. So I kind of just covered a lot of waterfront. I'd love to dig in and
Yeah.
go anywhere
Yeah.
else.
A few things. So, one of the things that I think we encounter with a lot of our merchants is they just aren't paying attention to that loss rate. So you talked a lot about like just starting to segment, but I think one of the things that I see is merchants are just shipping product out. They know loss is happening, but nobody is actually starting to put pencil to paper or cursor to spreadsheet to say, hey, these orders are not being fulfilled. We've got fraud, we've got issues with credit cards, we've got all sorts of things that are happening, these false returns, product drive damage, all these different circumstances that are coming in. Like, how often do you think that's the case? I mean, like, if you given sort of a guess of merchants that you've talked to with Signifyd, where just the starting point is they just don't know the size of the problem because they're not paying attention to it at all. And maybe as a second follow-up to that, like organizationally, maybe who is best positioned or who needs to be at the table to start kind of creating that alert? Because I do think with big merchants especially, it's 3 different teams that might have visibility and nobody's talking to each other. And so, yeah, maybe you could dive in on those 2 questions there to begin with.
Oh, you amazing setup there, because the race to growth, right? It reminds me of the unfortunate saga of Macaulay Culkin a lot. Like, I wish I knew what I knew, what I know now before I became the biggest celebrity on earth. I've seen this at
Mm-hmm.
dozens of merchants who started off on a small integration, started off doing like decent numbers, and all of a sudden an influencer is courting them. You
Yeah.
know, and they're worldwide. And the board and everyone at the top, and mostly everybody who's on top of anyone who's relegated down here in the X-Files Mulder basement of fraud is like, go, 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 go. And the problem becomes, why should I become the squeaky wheel in this like runaway operation? So to your point, Jordan, it's, hey, let's just ship and it's cost of doing business. Let's just ship and go. I've seen it a bunch. And I hope if you're listening to this now, number one, let me encourage you. And you're in a position where you haven't gotten to that massive level of worldwide renown. Let me tell you, you'll be there. And let me tell you, now is the time to start planning. And here's what you plan for, because you segued it perfectly there. You set it up perfectly. You might be in fraud. You might be in risk. You might be even in customer support or loss prevention. And you might have gotten there unbeknownst to you. I feel like Billy Budd sometime. I was just conscripted into this, but I'm happy I was.
Someone gave you a badge and a gun, and here you are.
Yeah. And maybe you did it intentionally because you like being in spreadsheets and just being analytical. That's amazing. Now is an opportunity for you to become a real cross-threader and a real, bring in the donuts to the table type person. You might cringe a little bit at hearing that, but let me tell you, if you're thinking about job security and you're thinking, oh, if I'm just quiet down here, everything's going to be cool. Let me warn you, when somebody sees that $1 million to $3 million kind of red line, they're coming right for you. So here's what I would do. Let's say I'm a one-person fraud shop. I am the guy that they just said, take a look at this.
Here's the pile of it. You clean it up, make it smell better.
Exactly. And get it off my desk. You don't go in, and honestly, I rely on the learnings I've gotten from my good friend Brian Davis at Dodgeball, who is honestly the man at this, really. Okay. So a lot of this is being cribbed from him. Brian, you're the man. You need to start figuring out your map, your world of your business world, and who owns what KPIs, who owns what metrics. For instance, the marketing team, right? You might not think that they're so involved in this, but when they're investigating or when they're like going after leads and they're trying to drive pipe and they're trying to get people into the funnel and they're engaging different folks and they're sending targeted emails and stuff like that, think about how much spend there is that is being lost by sending actual fraudsters emails with like a 20% off discount code because they registered for an account at some time and they made a purchase, right? That's a left field example. My product team, they might think that friction is the F word and they might want to stay away from it. And that's cool. Let's meet them halfway. Let's be, really in a compromise type situation. I'm not going to go to them and say, you should have changed this. This is a problem. I told you so. It's, what are you trying to build? I'm like here to support it. And I want to make sure that it goes off flawlessly. For instance, when we built this one thing, whatever it might be, and we took away this one point of friction, here's what I've got from the last year. And look at these accounts that had stored payment instruments in them. And look how they were dormant for the last 3 or 4 years. I don't want to delete them from the rolls. They might be coming back to buy. Maybe I'm selling something that is, yearly, very seasonal. Like I'm not going to buy a phone every 2 weeks, What if we did X, Y, and Z? Because it can save you this. It can drive revenue this way. Or maybe I can meet you halfway on an A/B test. What if just for this, come to them in a way that you are positioning their dreams and hopes with a little bit of evidence, a little bit of receipts, not around why it's wrong, but how they can avoid the pitfalls of fame, success, and otherwise. You want to be a connector. You want to be an enabler of dreams, and you are sitting on all of that great data to do that.
So I think maybe a couple of things to kind of pull away on that one too. So, and maybe a quick thought. We've seen the fraud conversation be most effective when we're sort of starting to actually get a client to think about it. And we're often tackling this from the marketing agency side. So, that's not a traditional fraud role. But I'll get to why we end up being the ones sort of holding the bag or responsible for it. But when we find out who is most concerned with margins, that's almost always the person that if we can get them on board for the fraud evaluation and then a fraud fix, that it's going to be a needle mover 100% of the time, because everybody else has their own KPIs. And frankly, fraud is everybody's problem. It's the merchandiser's problem. It's the marketer's problem. It's the product team's problem. It's the logistics and fulfillment team. Everybody has that issue. Finance is concerned. And so everybody's there, but they're all sort of either oblivious to it, or they think it's smaller than it is, or they just aren't sort of comparing notes. And it's that one person who's really thinking margins that seems to sort of be the one who's, when they get it, they're like, all of a sudden hair's on fire, right? They're home aloneing it. They're Macaulay Culkin. They're going back. They're getting the BB gun. They've got the 1920s machine gun show. They're ready for whatever comes next. And so I think like maybe kind of one of the questions for that, like again, quantifying the pain, like by industry, maybe if you have some of that perspective. We deal a lot with like health and wellness, beauty, fashion, consumer electronics. Is there sort of a best guess you could put out there for the amount of fraud that is happening? And so maybe out of just GMV. So say like if I'm GMV 100 points, how much of that is actually maybe disappearing into sort of the fraud vacuum, do you think?
I think if you're not taking care of it right now and you're just letting it run, you're probably looking at 50 to 60 basis points of your decision GMV, which is a lot, depending, no matter how much you're bringing in, that's a lot. Yep. Almost 1 full % of the stuff you see coming in is going to come back to bite you if it's not biting you already. When you're mitigating and when you're in a healthy state, what does healthy look like? You're below 15 bips typically. This is like typical. Okay. Of course, there's outliers for everything, but if you're not mitigating, if you're not taking your supplements and doing your workouts and being mindful, you're probably sitting at nearly 100 bips, likely 60 bips of loss. If that is the cost of doing business, that is also the cost of you not going to that next level, not delivering on growth, not delivering on the aspirations of the board. And we talk about job security. That's a clear way to lose your job.
Yep. Yeah, so I think like unpacking that pain, right? Like that hits the margins, right? Because what happens is you get that fraud number, and then the marketing agency is told, hey, we need to have this for our ROAS. This needs to be the target. And that can actually make you uncompetitive, especially as you're scaling. You're moving from that niche story brand that people sort of are engaging because of they're kind of early adopters, and they're now sort of seeing you more as like a name brand, and you're competing in that space. The bigger player already has, built-in fraud control. They already have a manufacturing cycle that allows them to squeeze that extra point out in their margins. And that's really like one spot where that hits the marketing team. It hits sort of like one of the things I hate, especially with our brands that are fast moving products because we're good at digital marketing, is we hit zero inventory. And I'm finding out as we're getting into this conversation that 2 out of every 100 packages is gone. It's just inventory that's gone. And if we're pushing 5,000 orders, man, I've got people coming to my site, first-time visitors. We had a great campaign idea, great strategy, and they're just saying out of stock. Sorry, I'm going to go shop someplace else. That's a lost customer life, right? Which is a big deal.
1,000%. And also, if you're not able to control that inventory, and obviously that touches so many different people, and we're going to touch on this. This is one of those like very kind of wide-spanning things. But if you're not able to control that inventory quickly, then I might be a good buyer, come on your site, place an order, it's not there to be fulfilled, and next thing you know, you've got a friendly fraud chargeback because I don't want to call you, no matter how beautiful and human-y and awesome your customer support team is. I am a 21st century, and I am just going to say, fraud chargeback, I didn't get it. I'm not waiting 3 weeks. And now you've got a mountain of loss that isn't even related to physical loss. It's just phantom pain, but it's a red line nonetheless. So I think,
and that hits reviews too. Like, again, speaking from that
Yeah.
marketing background, like at AI age where every review gets reprocessed by ChatGPT, someone's like, yeah, they didn't send me my package and I had to charge them back. Like, well, you didn't have to charge us back. We didn't want you to charge us back, but like, that's the deal.
I got to pile on. You got the old Hallmans activated here. Now you're trying to take care of these people who are doing this, and you're giving them one-time courtesies with your customer support team. And now that's on Reddit. And now it's like, okay, if I just say that I'm unhappy with something, I'm going to get something free. And now that's not even a chargeback. That's a loss in some other realm. So I'm getting animated. I'm getting a little excited about it. I don't want to spook you if you're listening to this, that this is something that just is runaway and crazy. I have to go back again to find where the bleed is, the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and be ready to bring in the donuts and have those conversations from customer support up to marketing to product to your 3PL and everyone else. And you're going to have a lot of allies doing this lift with you because they're going to have, as you mentioned, Jordan, that aha moment of, oh, this is how I show my growth quarter over quarter, half over half. This is how I get my promotion. In the fraud space, we're kind of in the business of getting people promoted. Hopefully we get promoted too, but we're in the business of getting others promoted, making others feel like they're taking part in the growth. It's an amazing position to be in.
Yeah, anecdotally, we had one point of contact we were working with who was, he was over a very large, recognizable footwear brand, and they had this weird problem with people undercutting prices on Amazon listings, and they'd really done a good job of tightening down on who the authorized resellers were. They're big enough; they were able to partner with Amazon to sort of control some of those brand listing pages, and they still kept finding like this one particular seller sort of kept showing up. And a little bit of digging, a kind of tangential to the fraud story, was an authorized small local retailer was buying large amounts of inventory and then publishing and selling it on Amazon under a different brand name. And it took a little bit of research. He had to actually talk to some of the people who were actually doing the legwork of selling the product out to these retailers on the ground. So it's like, who is buying too much? Like, I mean, just who is, because this is obviously somebody we sell to, like who is just not buying the right amount. And that was sort of where they were able to trigger that sort of like, this is the aha moment we have. Save the brand a bunch of money, because it really was hitting a lot of their national sales efforts through Amazon because of somebody who was just sort of like, I can relist this inventory for $5 cheaper and I'm going to make a killing doing it. So
wait, let me tap on that real quick, because I want to really empower the fraud folks who are listening. That example right there is how it's a parable for how sometimes the bad can actually work in your favor. So power buyers, what we're talking about here, people are just scooping up large amounts of inventory. They're not all created equal. Okay. Some of them are going to be doing exactly like you just mentioned, this kind of triangulation fraud, or this kind of like, cottage industry deal where they're fleecing you a little bit. So step one is to figure out who those people are. Step two, we're back in the footwear space. One of the clients I work with blew my mind at MRC in Vegas this year. And he told me, from the information they gathered in mitigating that kind of abusive behavior / fraud, whatever you want to call it, they were able to rethink how they treat liquidation. So rather than liquidating stuff that wouldn't move, their team was making calls to these power buyers and saying, look, you're good. Like, you're pretty good and we trust you. What if I made you a deal here on all of these SKUs? And it saves us a little bit. We're making a little more money than we would make if we liquidated. So if you're creative, you're in this space, think about turning your negatives into positives a little bit, and then you get those pat on the backs from all over, and then they start doing your work for you. It's a win-win.
Yeah, that's a great call out. So maybe kind of going back to our diagnosis, sort of symptoms. What is the first sort of thing someone will spot that just tells them that there is a fraud issue happening? Like, how does that first begin to sort of surface to somebody? Like, maybe in the organization, who's most likely to spot it first? Who's most likely to see this pattern of behavior? Is it a customer service team? Is it, somebody in operations? Like, where does that, like, maybe I need to see the doctor begin to happen at?
Yeah. So I'm going to call out two places right now. let's pretend that your organization is completely like scattered buckshot, like everyone's in their own little world. Your payments folks are going to be seeing chargebacks. Duh.
Okay.
That's like start one. And then number two is your customer support team is going to have a lot of customer complaints coming in. You know, those complaints are either going to be on the false negative where they were declined, but they're good. Like, hey, I made an order, didn't go through. And even that is like realms for social engineering, and maybe they're lying. We could talk about that. And then the other worst side of it is I got an order on my credit card from y'all, and I don't even know who you are, you know? And a lot of those calls never happen, right? So let's come back to that customer support thing in a second. But chargebacks, unfortunately, are where people begin. And the problem with chargebacks is it's like addressing a real physical issue with you way too far gone. You're way too far gone. You're 30, 60, 90, 120 days even out from that order placed. So now it's just a whack-a-mole of things that happened in the past, trying to like mitigate and treat it now. But you've got this tidal wave forming from 4 or 5 months ago still of all this other stuff. So you can learn from those chargebacks, and they can be your kind of beginning, maybe even like a Rosetta Stone is to figure out what bad looks like from a granular like signal base. But if all you're doing is looking at chargebacks and kind of mitigating in the past, you're donezo. Okay.
So talk to, I mean, like, so for us, like, we'll talk like that sort of growing, small, established, digitally native brand, talk to the bookkeeper. Because most of our clients I know who are in that sort of space, one of the first hires they want to make is the bookkeeper, the accountant, because that's not exciting work most of the time. No offense to the bookkeepers, accountants out there, but it's just not where most people are sort of engaged. So talk to the bookkeeper, talk to the person who's got that finance role and is seeing the chargebacks, who's you're asking to handle those chargebacks, because they're probably the one who can start keeping account, start quantifying the dollar value of those transactions being lost, what products they are. You mentioned a couple other things like, what channel are they coming in from? Those are some really good, I think, clues to sort of get that diagnosis going.
Yeah, and steal their dashboards lovingly. Good artists create, great artists steal their dashboards, and then, gussy them up a little bit. As Jordan's mentioning here, start digging into the lowest hanging fruit, the highest dollar chargebacks. Start figuring out whether or not this person didn't receive the item in reality, or if there was some sort of fleecing going on. Get your Google Voice phone out and call them and talk to them.
Get your agent working, the AI agent working for you.
Yeah. Do a little like, old school roll up the sleeves on that. But as someone who works for a provider, I am often envious of people who are in your position here, because you are sitting on the best data. You are sitting on log data to see, how they logged in, how they accessed the page, how quickly they were on the page. You could go down a rabbit hole. I go to my CISO, right? If I go to my security team, anyone who's involved with our perimeter defense, and I say, look, here's 5 orders, 5 transactions, 5. And I've got like a weird feeling about these 5. Can you just like give me the logs on them? Can you show me how to look up the logs on them? Oh, dude, you could just log in and do it yourself. Boom. Now you're good. Now I can try and triangulate or make some sort of a, Charlie from Always Sunny type red line connection between, people who do this also do that. This might be the vector I've got, or you could even reverse engineer what they've done on the site for yourself. Maybe you're lucky enough to see like recorded transactional information where you can see their screen and what they're doing. Use those chargebacks as like a discovery point, but that's like, crawling. If we want to talk about walking, we can talk about how we walk, but you got to start to crawl first.
Yeah. So next steps then. So again, I've got the sense. I've started to take a little bit of a record, for a small brand, again, kind of looking at that emerging, like, what are some of the baby steps of preventing some of that? Is there policy things? Is there something with, merchant processors, payment gateways? Is there certain types of things that you think that, if you kind of implement some of these, it's just going to start to take a bit of that edge off and allow you to get to the next step? Like, what would be step 2? Step 1 is seeing the problem, knowing how to find the problem, quantifying it. But like, step 2 is maybe like my essential oils. Like, what am I going to put on it? Maybe it'll work. Maybe it's just an old wives' tale. Maybe it's someone getting me in a pyramid scheme. What is that next thing there?
Fantastic. Because your lavender oil here,
Oh yeah.
you want to, first off, you want to avoid, I don't know, your rosemary oil here, if I'm going with the number, avoid going straight into prescriptive rules, right? You just did all this investigation and you saw this bad actor did X, Y, and Z to defraud you. Do not start declining every order that does X, Y, and Z. Because if you're just getting out of crawling and now you're blocking all of this, hey, fraud went away. Cool. Fraud's like down super. But like, why is my approval rate? Why is my take rate? Why is my profit just like plummeted? You know,
and people give you bad reviews for not being able to check out. I mean, like that's another issue is like, I see that sort of that whipsaw happen where I prevented fraud, but now people hate me. It's like,
yeah, your website doesn't work.
Yeah,
period.
right.
Now you've got like the developers breathing down your neck in your basement office. They're like, what the heck did you do? So don't go that route. Okay. It depends on what you're working with, what tool set you've got. But ultimately, any tool set that you're working with is going to give you some sort of score, some sort of level as to the inherent risk of a transaction. If you're lucky that it's an actual score, you can see, okay, 100 is amazing, 0 is the worst. This one got in like the 40s. This one got like a 50. This one got a 30. Okay, maybe I could take that initial rule I was thinking about and I could only limit it to stuff that is in like my lower quartile of, in my riskier kind of bin.
Okay. Yeah.
And before I ever hit deploy or before I ever hit go on this, I want to tell you, folks who are listening, to just start in shadow mode. Just start by doing things speculatively. Do it for a week. Do it for a few days and see what the impact was on your overall take, on your performance. If it only affects like 40 or 50 bips, that's 0.4, 0.5% of your traffic, you might be onto something, right? But if we're catching like 3 or 4 or 5 or 8% of your traffic, stay away, right?
Yep.
So start thinking about the efficacy of your investigations based on how impactful it is. You do not have 8% fraud, I promise you. If you do, call the FBI, but if you've got 8%, 10% fraud in your daily traffic, and that's what you're showing, there's a problem with the way in which you've investigated. So let that number, that impact number, be a mirror to you for the kind of analysis you're doing. Maybe you're not looking deep enough. Maybe you're looking way too deep. Maybe it's a little bit of you brought up processors, right? Every processor we use, let's say I take card payments, of course, and let's say I also take, Shopify Pay, right? Shop Pay is going to allow you to do some sort of different things when you're in that checkout flow. Shop Pay might, maybe somebody's making a compromise at that level of someone else's account. If I can whittle down my problem space, my surface area, and say, I'm only going to be constrictive on Shop Pay orders or orders that were made using this digital wallet or that. Okay, now you're not affecting clearly the entirety of your traffic. You're just whittling down. So whittle down and start in shadow mode.
Yeah.
And if you like what you did in shadow mode, it might be time to deploy.
Yeah. All right. So then we're sort of now moving into that sort of that next evolution. Talk to me a little bit about Signifyd specifically. So again, like, I've done this as a merchant. Like that was part of my story in e-commerce and digital marketing, was getting kind of through the learning phase of starting my own sites with different platforms. And I found like some platforms were good at helping me prevent fraud and others were bad, and some of them were fully up to me. Like what I didn't know was going to hurt me for sure. So talk to me about sort of that next step as we sort of are moving forward. Like, when is it the right time to get a hold of Signifyd? Is there like a dollar value where it just is for Signifyd, it's absolutely a layup? Like if you're running this much GMV, that one basis of fraud is happening, like you feel like this is a slam dunk 100% of the time, maybe even by industry or by country, so what are some maybe that mix of symptoms where you're like, Signifyd is absolutely perfectly going to fix you 99% of the time? And we'll put a caveat there. Maybe there is some exceptions. Jump in on that, please.
Yeah, for sure. think less about the fraud problem here. As we were going through that exercise right there with shadow mode, we're talking about, oh, how much am I actually eating away from my revenue by trying to be a little bit, cautious here. And you're going to find if you're operating in a data silo where all you have is your own information, that you have first time buyers, you have, guest buyers, you have people who've been away for a long time, and you don't really know if it's good or bad. The light should go on in your head to say, I need more data. I need to know who this person is. Any provider, I would argue Signifyd is the best among them, but any provider will promise you commerce network type data where I can say, hey, it's a first time buyer for you, but we've seen this individual for years. And we
Yeah.
know what they do on 30,000 different levels. And we can tell, are they shifting or drifting away from what's expected, or are they doing things that they always do, good or bad? Because compromise happens at every point. Most of the compromise you see is well beyond your platform, right? I'm going to hack into somebody's Gmail. I'm going to see all their emails and where they shop. And then from there, I'm going to, change a password and I'm in, so it's not you, it's what this person's
Mm-hmm.
doing outside. So when you think about how you can avoid false positives, which is the real deal, how you could stop declining people that are actually good, and how you could really trust that first time buyer who it took your marketing team months and years to get into the door, and it takes you milliseconds to keep them out for life. Like,
Yep.
you don't want that to happen. So you need to lean on some sort of commerce network that has seen these people before you. I argue Signifyd is the best at it. I've been here for 4 years. I've seen how we operate. And for instance, I've seen up to a 10% increase in terms of getting rid of existing data, like rule sets, getting rid of saying, hey, we block everything that comes out of this geo. It's just way too high risk. Okay, well, what if we hit you with some commerce network, enablement? What if we empower you to, approve more there while leaning on our commerce network to say, when it comes out of that geo, it is really just these two minute data points that make it bad, and we stop
Yeah.
those. So
Interesting.
the uplift on false positive, the revenue enablement is in my estimation the selling factor, like the let me get this factor for Signifyd. You're gonna be putting your head against the wall, unfortunately, when it's just a defensive posture and not
Yeah.
a defensive posture that is also, backed by, we're also going to market still and we're acquiring new buyers.
And playing that off, I mean, like the whole medical thing, like the sort of that connection we try and make with these episodes. A lot of times when we're experiencing some sort of physical unwellness, I don't know if that's a word. Well, wellness is a word, so unwellness must be as well, right? Um, a lot of times, like one of the ways that we end up in at the doctor's is when the spillover effect is big enough. I've got a pain in my foot that's become a pain in my knee, that's become a pain in my hip. I'm going to go to the doctor now because I can't sit at work. When it was just a pain in my foot, not a big deal. I sit at a desk. I don't have to do this a lot. I can put up with it. But guess what? Now I'm actually going to show up. And so I love that sort of like there is not only we're preventing loss, but we're also bringing in good revenue by cleaning up some of the maybe the overly defensive aspects of things. You touched on geo. So again, maybe kind of going back to a spot where a lot of fraud does happen. Is there a lot of value in what Signifyd brings to the table in terms of internationalization? So if I'm a US brand, I'm starting to go to Canada, maybe to Mexico, I'm shipping to EU, to Asia. Is there value in having a fraud partner on hand because of those particular circumstances?
1,000% for a number of reasons. First off, let's say you have those markets established already and you're only dealing with your own data. Well, if you have a commerce network in your, covering your 6, they should see, Signifyd sees, they've
Mm-hmm.
seen tons of traffic coming out of that geo. LATAM comes to mind, like off the bat. LATAM, emerging market, tons of great stuff happens there. But the data itself is almost alien to you if you're only used to looking at US-based transactions. The delivery addresses are codified in a completely different way. You tend to see families all using the same credit card, friends using a similar credit card
Okay.
for various issues. And these are things that might put your red flag up. And you
Yeah.
might say, oh, this is definitely fraud. You want to partner with somebody who's had skin in the game in this new geo for a long enough time to say, actually, this is how it's done, here, there, or elsewhere, and you can trust this. We've trusted it for years, and it's good. That's for the beginning. That's one side. Number two, we're trying to make you amazing and get you promoted. Let's say you don't have established geos or established markets outside of the United States, but you understand that a lot of things are being shipped to that Airport Way address in Portland, and that all these familiar, Carson, Delaware, and parts of Florida. The idea that you holistically block freight forwarding addresses
Mm,
or reshippers, or even like cottage industries that are residential addresses that are also reshipping, dangerous for your brand. Since 2020, we have seen, I want to say, over $20 billion in transaction to these freight forwarding sites, and we have only witnessed about 50 bips of loss from those sites. They're pretty
wow.
dang good.
Hmm.
So if you're leaving that revenue away, you're not only kneecapping yourself, but you're preventing yourself from going to your leadership and saying, "Hey, look, we're hot in Lithuania."
Yeah,
Like,
right.
like that's a great actionable
Black
thing.
Capes, big in Transylvania. We're doing well. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly,
Yep.
exactly. And I
Mm,
love that because it's like, hey, this person in risk is actually enabling me to think from a marketing perspective, from wherever else, to, I had a hunch about this. And now we've got data around it. Okay, I'm going to put a weekly on their calendar and talk to them more about these emerging geos. You've made yourself very useful there. So don't deny revenue. Don't deny yourself the opportunity to be important. And also, don't take let's not have too much hubris here. Don't take into account that the bag of tricks that you have built over all of your years in fraud fighting is applicable in
mm,
different metros and
yeah.
geos and elsewhere. You need to kind
Yep.
of rely on the truth, the ground, the people who are boots on the ground there.
Yep. That's so good. So we are at time. So I want to, before we close up, one, I want to make sure we get an invite out. We've got to have you back because there's just so many more questions running through my mind right now that
Thank
I
you.
think we need to unpack. But I'd love to know sort of just Signifyd, do you guys have any offers that are available for people listening to the podcast and joining us this way that would be applicable? Or just what's sort of the best way to initiate a conversation with Signifyd and get some traction going around next steps there?
Well, my name is Vito Petruzzelli, and there's very few of me on the internet. I'm always happy
Only
to talk
one.
with you. There's
Yeah.
only one as
I
far as
looked
I
I
know.
looked for you on MySpace. I could only find you.
Oh man, I used to be hot on MySpace back in
Yeah,
the day.
punk rock
We can
band. It's
talk
still
about that on
there.
the next
Yeah.
episode. Find me and we'll talk. As far as offers, edit. I don't know. I don't know if Morgan didn't give me that information, but
Okay.
I can offer you.
100% off if you sign up through the podcast, says Vito. Good job.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
Good.
Trust me. First 5 years on me. I would like to offer you some advice though, real quick. We're rolling into the holiday season. Okay. The holiday season is a great time for retailers. We know from our own data, and as well, you get so much good activity during those times, whether it's a big
Yeah.
sale or whether it's Christmas, here we go, Black Friday, here we go.
Hmm.
So you might be thinking, okay, well, I'm going to man the queues in my manual review. I'm going to be very busy here. I've got a lot of let a lot through, stop the bad stuff, whatever. You might also be thinking, if you're outside of the risk space, that this is the time for you to hit your line. That's why it's Black Friday. Let's get in the black, right? The problem is, as your doctor here, you're not going to know what went wrong until 2, 3, 4 months in the future.
Oh, yeah.
If you're working with a provider, lean on them, push them, demand them to give you insights on potential friendly fraud right now. Potential buyers who are fitting a pattern that they're not typical fraudsters. They're not using stolen credit cards or ATO or anything like that, but they're apt to return that rock in a box.
Mm,
They're apt to claim a SNAD or INR chargeback where they're saying, this green couch is actually red. You want that data going into this so that you can be selective in how you appease people who are making returns requests and who you offer certain deals to. Those are two
okay.
things that Signifyd does incredibly well. And if your provider isn't doing that, come find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Okay, very good, Vito. I appreciate so much your time and your expertise. We're really excited. Again, we'll get that follow-up one. Well, maybe we'll tailor it really tightly to that BFCM, that holiday stretch, because there is so much that happens. One of my favorite things from like the medical shows is like House. Anytime they're trying to figure out what's wrong, they put the guy up on a treadmill and they make him run with a mask on, and then they wait till his heart fails. I'm like, so that's sort of what happens in BFCM, right? Like, it's just like, we're going to put him on a treadmill, we're going to make him run. We know he's not well, we're just going to see when the heart stops. Like, we'll hopefully help prevent that kind of stress testing. So
yes, we're here for you.
Awesome. Very good. Vito, take care, and we're excited to have you back. This has been another episode of Cyber Salve. We are helping cure those pain points, specifically today, getting rid of that nausea and that vertigo that comes from fraud, whatever its source may be, with our friends at Signifyd. Bye, everyone. Until next time.